All right, so what are the hidden barriers? Among the hidden barriers, there is fear of judgment. So if I start offering my patients a big treatment, they'll think I'm after their money. Or I'm a perfectionist. I need another course and another course and another course. That just stems from insecurity. And what happens is I keep, analyzing the problem and paralysis through analysis. Everything is catastrophic, right? So if one patient says no, immediately, I feel rejected and look, this isn't gonna work. I change back, I revert back to my old habits. So I don't even give change or a strategic plan a chance to work. Then there's the fee shame. Of course, when I present the fee, I say, you can have a crown at £1,000, and I know it's a lot of money, or you can have a crown at £500, and I think that's more affordable. How do I know the patient can't afford? Or maybe the patient just wants to prioritize their oral health. Why am I filling in what the patient should be choosing? And I think we underestimate the patient's ability to, when empowered, to make the right decision. And that empowering of patients is essential, is absolutely essential. And you empower them by having a professional approach, not a sales approach, not an approach that belittles them, not an approach that looks at them as a bag of money and how can I extract that money out of that bag? No, grown up, adult to adult, same level, and I'm the professional. And I know what I'm worth, and I'm offering valuable treatments to you as a patient. And you have every right to question it, you have every right to think about it, and you have every right to refuse it. Absolutely. That doesn't make me less, right? It's a grown-up discussion, right? So fee shame, I see it, many times in the dental world. It's a big thing, and it's informed by many interactions with patients who tell you that, oh, life is so expensive, it's a lot of money. I had a patient, right? He would come in, drive in his Maserati, and he would always complain about price, right? And at some point I said, look, you say it's expensive. Expensive relative to what? If I'm honest with you, after years, he was a Dutch patient. After years of, seeing him and always complaining, I built up this kind of, relationship where we could joke lightheartedly with, about all kinds of things in life. And I said, you say expensive. Well, it's definitely not as expensive as your Maserati. So it's expensive relative to the value you're perceiving. You're saying, well, you're telling me this filling is 150 euros. That's a lot of money. Well, it's a lot of money, for, a glass of water, yes. But if you take into account the years of training that I have, the infrastructure that is built to enable me to do this filling, the staff cost, overhead, management, like all of this. And apart from that, there's insurance and maintenance. And, I think we as associate dentists, I've been a practice owner, we underestimate the cost of running a practice. And there's a reason I don't even want to have my own practice, because it's pretty much headache. But there's a fun side to it. But many associate dentists think that they're going to be making more money if they own, and they're going to be able to do their own type of dentistry. Well, I can tell you, you can practice your own dentistry already. You're not limited by practice, by principle, by staff, by nothing. You can do it. It's a mindset because experts are very much in demand, and generalists. If I put out a general dentist vacancy on BDJ jobs, I would get roughly about 30 to 40, at least applications, 30 to 40 applications for a private dentist. And every single one of them has great portfolios, some of them even overqualified. And I just need one part-timer. Whereas if I'm looking for someone who can extract wisdom teeth, the number of applications will be maybe 5. So your position as an expert will be much easier conveyed, or the message or your brand, than when you're lost in the crowd of dentists. And that's, I think, the most important thing in developing your own brand. So many dentists say, there is low locus of control. They, the principal decides everything, or, I work in an area that is poor. If that's the case, if that is truly the case, and I would challenge that, but if that's the case, and there are many deprived areas, yes, I agree, of course. But I've heard it many times from dentists say, this area is poor. And in fact, I come in, or I know dentists who work there who charge quite high fees. So again, it's how we perceive the environment around us, and how much control do we have over our own fate. So there's the scarcity mindset, which means every patient who comes in can't afford my services. I'm too expensive. Right? No, think in abundance. Think about the value you're giving to patients and the oral health implications of our work. Right? We're preventing disease, we're preventing inflammation and discomfort and imbalance in the bite. We're improving aesthetics. People can be presenting themselves in a much better way. They're healthier. Their relationships are based on a healthy oral cavity. I don't want to say the full bath, but yeah. So that shift in thinking, instead of thinking, well, the money that I'm charging is too much and it's also expensive. Well, what is the choice really for patients? If they want very high levels of dental care to be given to them, I think it's very important that they also recognize that high quality comes at a high cost. Because in order for me to deliver, laser surgery, I need to purchase the laser machine. In order for me to take a CBCT scan, I need to actually purchase the machine. And that comes at a cost. And then, of course, I have to spend £1,000 to, a MaxFax radiology expert to get my level 1 and level 2. And that comes at a cost as well. So one patient asked me, why is your fee so high? Right? And I charge about $1,400 for a root canal treatment. I said, look, I spent 12 years in university and I've done well over 14,000 root canal treatments. And I bring in my own kit and I travel from London all the way down south to provide a service that a dental practice nearby has been advertising for an endo role for over 2 years and they couldn't find. And, I'm not applying to that role because I'm loyal to the practice where I'm working. And the patient said, okay, fine. Yeah, yes, I get that. Right. It comes at a cost, right? And I tell her all the details of what we do during treatment, and that adds to the perceived value of my services. So when you look at it as cost, you say, wow, it's a lot of money, right? It's a lot of pennies. But what am I getting in return? Right? No toothache, inflammation gone, right? And I keep a tooth and I can smile without having to worry that, I look like a pirate.